Hello and welcome to the Men's Lifeline Academy podcast. Today I got Shadow in the house. Shadow, man, this
Hey,
guy
how's it
is a
going?
legend. This guy is doing Flex Friday, always showing up to the gym, doing some competitions, and always taking his life to the next level. He's a grandfather, father, and if I believe it or not, I believe he likes a little bit of video games from time to time to help him de-stress.
Oh yeah, gotta play some Call of Duty and shoot those zombies.
That's right, gotta have that card, man. So, Shadow, welcome to the podcast. This has been a long time coming.
Thanks for having me.
So, kind of tell us about your story. Like, what led you maybe into the gym? What led you to just maybe sitting back, chilling, relaxing, playing some games, connecting with people? Just what is your story? Because on here we bring on men who have a story to share, a story that's going to help inspire somebody. And we hope that's you who's watching this podcast, needing some hope, needing some inspiration. Because Shadow, he's your man. So,
Yeah, for sure. Oh, for me, like I'm not gonna say that I'm old, but I'm old. All right, so like I'm 50 years old. So when video games first started coming out, the first first person shooter I was playing was Duke Nukem back in the day, and playing online with my friend. So video games for me have always been an outlet for just running around and shooting things, right? So with that being said, in high school, that's where I was introduced to the weights and certain lifting. So always been lifting since high school, but once you become, a man and start working on a regular basis, the gym does take a back seat. Or even, if it's something that you did for a regular time, once you start having a family, there is no more time for the gym. But depending on your situation and depending on your goals, you have to set time apart to actually go to the gym, right? So bring myself 14 years since I've been working here at the university or at a university in Canada. There is a gym here that I could use on a regular basis, and it's free for staff and students. So
oh,
you have to
even
take advantage
students.
of it.
Awesome.
Yep. So and it's a nice gym too. But in the beginning, it wasn't such a nice gym. So, you know, they built themselves a nice gym with like I'm gonna say 10 squat racks in it,
Oh,
and there is an area in there for powerlifters, which I became 4 years ago. So I pay my fees for the union, and I lift there now. So
awesome. So, what got you into powerlifting about 4 years ago?
4 years ago, well, so working at the university for 14 years, um, and so training on a consistency, on a sorry, lifting on a consistent basis, just building up my strength. Uh, and then one day I was looking at a website and I seen a powerlifter, not seen a powerlifter, but I seen there was a powerlifting competition,
Hmm.
right? So I wanted to join. I wanted to test my strength, but it's not just going to this one place and lifting. So there's certain things that you needed to do. You had to pay the union dues. You also needed to get a singlet. You also you had to register as well, right?
Oh, wow.
So this one competition always sells out, and it's always like the bench only was the only one that was left open. So I decided to do the bench only, right?
Hmm.
So with that being said, I registered, and it was a Thursday. The reason why I say it was a Thursday, because the next day, actually, no, it wasn't Thursday. It was St. Patrick's Day, I believe, 4 years ago. And what happened the next day was the pandemic hit.
Oh,
So there was no more competitions.
right.
So, everything shut down, and that was it. So I continued to train at home and doing body weight exercises, and then when they eased the restrictions, went back to the gym, started training, and I entered a full 3 lift powerlifting competitions. All right. Now, have you ever watched a powerlifting competition before?
I have not.
All right, so you have to do three lifts for your squat, bench, and deadlift,
Okay.
and you have to make weight. All right, and there's different weight categories you can lift at. All right,
Right.
so back then I was hovering around 230, um, and so I got my singlet, it registered, and it's a different beast. Like, just, going to the gym and lifting, it is, it's okay. It's just, you're not, people don't judge you. Like, there's three judges when you're actually powerlifting. There's the head judge and two side judges to make sure that when you're squatting, that you're hitting depth.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're benching, that your elbows are actually getting down below parallel and your butt doesn't leave and your feet don't move. All
Oh,
right. And when you're deadlifting, you have to make sure that you're locking out properly.
right.
All right. So my first powerlifting competition, I just did, lifts I was comfortable with in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And you put your first one in, do the lift. You have a minute to go do your next, to put down the weight that you're about to lift next. So did that one, and we did the third one. So I did well. I don't think there was anybody else in my weight category. So, you know, that was that. And then once you do something once and you enjoy it, you're gonna have to do it again.
Right.
So after that day, I caught the bug and entered another powerlifting competition. And with that being said, my bench press, I guess we're gonna highlight this one little note here because my bench press was my bread and butter. My squat and deadlift, they were okay, but nothing spectacular. All right. So entered in, did my next, I think it was not Westerns, I think it was provincials. And I hit doesn't matter what I hit, but I did good in it, right? So um after that, I did Westerns. And if I'm not mistaken, this is going to lead into another question, but I'm going to hang on to that.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, that was that.
So what was your bench press? Like what were your weights doing?
Uh,
Like as you're starting, because that's your starting point where you did okay, especially if that's your bread and butter.
yeah. I was able to get like 400-ish or 185 kilos. So up in Canada, we use kilos.
Right.
So 185 kilos. And to bring that forward, I'm still hovering around that right now. Like for me, I don't pay too much attention to my bench press.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because if you lay all your eggs into one basket, it's going to catch up with you. And that's going to bring me back to my other story there. So, I've been working on my squat and my deadlift.
Awesome. So do you have like your own coach that's kind of helping you through this to make sure you have like proper form, or are you just kind of relying on people that kind of show up to the gym, especially when it's like a dedicated area?
Um, I have a few friends online that I talk to
Mm-hmm.
about that. Um, and that's going to bring me also to another story that I have that you have for me. So I have friends that, keep an eye out for me. So, and I also, I watch my videos quite a bit to make sure that everything's on point. So,
So do you have like certain software that kind of helps you to know the depth, like kind of analyze the video?
uh, like I videotape all my lifts from the sides and just to make sure that everything, that my butt's down when I do my bench press, that I'm
Right.
hitting depth when I do my squats, and that I don't have soft knees when I am doing my deadlifts.
Oh, and 4 years later, you still have the bug. You still love doing what you're doing.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, um, yeah. All right, so when I entered, I was a master's one. So for that is the age category between the ages of 40 and 49.
Okay.
So I was in the middle-ish of that age group.
Mm-hmm.
So when I finished third at Westerns, and that was, I guess, the first kick in the pants that I need to do something a little different. For me, like I am a competition-driven kind of person,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where I'm going to be able to answer those other 2 points that I laid out before. So for me, when you lose or you fail, that's a point when you have to learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Learn something different. So when I took third at Westerns, my handler now, he wasn't my handler then. He wrote a program for me,
Oh wow.
and I started to use that program rather than the program that I was using.
So is that like a
Right.
different like is it so would you change up between food or different movement? Like did you go from like lifting like heavy to light just to get that position comfortable
The
like with that?
intensity of the lifts
Okay.
grew quite intense. So that's what changed quite a bit.
Okay, so kind of the opposite what I'm kind of thinking. So you really focus on more doing kind of heavier lifts and getting
Oh
more
yeah.
comfortable with the heavier lifts.
Yep. Working more on the fatigue part of it. Even though I didn't hit fatigue, um, it was enough weight for me to push myself a little bit further.
Okay. And do you still have the same handler as you did back then now or
Yeah, yeah. So he handled what your handler does is more like you become a diva for the competition. All right.
oh
So when you're in the gym, you would load up your own bar and stuff like that. But when you are lifting, your handler takes care of that. So all the paperwork that you would do, he takes care of that for you or she. So loads up my bar, you know, checks everything, and then in between your lifts, you give him the number that you're going to lift on your next lift, and then he gives that to the people at the table.
nice. Now we don't have to
Yeah,
pinch your fingers or worry about anything with messing with the weights.
yeah. Just you sit not as you sit back, but your concentration is on your lift.
Yeah.
So you're there to lift, you lift.
So now I see that you got some fancy, really cool looking headphones.
Yep.
So what helps you kind of get into the zone when you're about to do like a heavy lift? Like, do you take time to like listen to any like music, or do you just like how do you get into that mode like that you're gonna just focus on this lift, that you're gonna do everything to the best of your ability to execute it?
For me, like I have a training playlist that I listen to. So all the music that I do, you know, that gets you pumped up to do a lift, I do listen to that. But for me, when I know that I have to do something, my mind is set that I'm gonna have to do it. So
Okay,
even if I don't have my headphones on, I am going to do that lift. I try not to have too many external things to pump me up because on competition day, you can't put headphones on,
okay,
right? Um, you may not have your favorite meal before you actually lift. Like I've done national competitions, so where we had to fly out to, actually no, we drove to BC. Um,
you drove to
so
DC
we
for
had to
this
drive out,
one?
yeah, Vancouver.
Oh
Yeah,
wow,
that was like nationals 2023. So, we had to go sleep in a strange bed. Or actually, no, we shared Airbnb with somebody. But so, everything's not to your liking. Like, when you sleep in your own bed, you have to get up to go train. You can show up a little bit late, or you can, you know, go pick up a pre-workout or, like a Monster can at the at this at the 7-Eleven or
right,
Circle K, and and things will just work for you. Or you can have your headphones, or you forgot your headphones, you have to go back home and go get it. You know what I mean? There's certain things that you can
right,
do when you are at home, but when you're competing, for me, it's just like it's like peeling an onion, right? So you're stripped away from your comfy bed. You can't have your headphones. You're not wearing your favorite gym clothes. It's just you and the weights and three people judging you. So
how does that feel like from then to going to nationals, just like going to your first like competition, something you haven't really done before? Unless like in high school,
um,
I know you played. Did you? I know you said you've always been in the gym since high school. Did you play sports where you kind of used to people judging you, or is this like a new experience?
uh, I played so when I was in high school, I did wrestling
Okay.
and I did rugby.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, and that's
Tough
where for
guy.
me the rugby is fun. Love it. And now that I don't do cardio, I wish I would have stuck with the cardio aspect of rugby, just running and all that kind of other kind of good stuff. Because, cardio does bring your weight down.
Hmm.
So for me, if I added a little bit more cardio into my training, which I don't, my weight would come down a little bit. So, but there's ways to adding, you know, cardio into your training just by doing more sets. So, and it does raise your heart rate up and all that other kind of good stuff.
Yeah. So how do you, since you don't do a lot of cardio, how do you keep up that endurance level to maintain all those weights? I know you're not necessarily running, but just to have that strong heart, that breath too that comes with it. Because I
True.
know breathing is a huge part of it,
Oh
and
yeah.
there's a lot of times
Um,
that there's improper breathing.
oh yeah. So like in the beginning of my of the program, I had another friend write another program for me. Is always going to be like high reps.
Mm,
All right. So like 15 reps. So you pick not pick a weight. There's going to be like you're going to use a weight like a 50% of your one rep max, and you hit that for 15 reps. That's what I like to do.
oh wow,
Right. Um, and just hit that for like four sets. And for me, that's a lot of cardio. Right.
that's
Um,
that's fair.
oh yeah. There's another friend of mine on Twitter. He goes by Strength Debates, I believe it is. Um, his philosophy is use heavier weights for 3 reps, and instead of just doing 3 sets, do that for 15 sets.
Mm. 15 sets.
Yes, I know it
Whoa.
sounds crazy, but within the so let's just say, for example, that you're going to be using 50% of your one rep max
Right.
for 4 sets of 15 reps, right?
Right.
Why not add some more weight to the bar and do 3 reps for 15 sets?
That's
I seen your eyes open up when I said that to you. Yeah,
yeah.
and it is hard, and to be not to be fair, but if you're training, like you want your training to be intense. Like, yes, you could do, pick up a weight and just do for 3 reps. You
Mm.
think about it, you go, what's 3 reps going to do? But if you use a weight that's challenging to you, over X amount of sets, that will get your heart rate up.
Yeah.
That will push you.
Teach you to pace yourself versus just like boom,
Oh
boom,
yeah,
boom.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
take your time because hey, you got 15 sets, 3 reps. I mean,
Yeah,
that's gonna take a minute.
oh yeah, and the time, like he says, to rest between sets is 2 minutes.
Okay, that was gonna be my next question was how much rest are you getting? So, that could
Yeah, two
easily
minutes.
take like a half hour to easily just do
No, you take 2 minutes, and that's why, like, when I'm doing those kind of exercises, like today, I did that for my pause reps.
that. Okay,
So I was doing pause deadlifts and 2-minute breaks, and I did that for 6 sets. And yes, I was breathing heavy. It was tiring.
right.
So
Well,
it does work.
yes. Well, especially if you're trying to do a different training program to build up that stamina, especially if you're not on the treadmill or
Yep.
just running, you're just focusing on building that stamina in different ways. And so, what kind of led you to getting on Twitter slash X slash the platform where the knowledge base goes?
Uh, yeah, like for me, like I like to share my tweets or
Mm-hmm.
my lifts. All right. So like today, like I did my deadlifts, and then since I injured myself, and I'm gonna put a little pin into that too, because lifting weights, you will injure yourself. All right. It is something dangerous. Not dangerous, but you will whatever.
It's a risk.
Yeah, it is a risk. Right. And you will injure yourself. But with that being said, I finally came over an injury. So the physiotherapist said, you can lift heavier again. So, I did some deadlifts today, and it felt good. So I shared that with the group of friends that I always share with. And, it's like climbing Mount Everest. Okay. Yes, maybe my friend over here he's going one path, he's going another path. So everybody has a different goal for their training, right? But we all come back to the camp, and we share our stories. All right. And for me, like, you surround yourself with people that maybe their goal is different than your goals,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, we push ourselves to the next level. So
No, well, I think I've never heard of a Mount Everest analogy just like that, actually. Seriously, I
well,
don't
if
think I've ever heard one. I think that's kind of relates to a lot with the audience too. It's like go your different path, And let's come back and by the campfires, roast some s'mores, get some hot dogs, and let's share what our experiences, our stories.
Yeah, because like, depending on your training goals, you're going to experience something a little bit different. And maybe like I won't be able to lift heavy forever,
Right.
right? So, maybe something that I had a friend of mine tell me a long time ago, sparked an interest for me to change my training goals. I could go back and take a look and see what they said and, you know, train differently,
Yeah.
you know, because for me, like the friendships that we make along the way, and my journey is going to be different than your journey,
Right.
but, friends last forever, right? So, I'm not just here to, yeah, just think about this. I'm here to, not inspire people, but we're all here to inspire people, but to push people. You know what I mean?
I do.
I want you to succeed, and I want myself to succeed. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. And the only way to do that is when we push each other to be better.
Exactly. Exactly. So,
That's one of the most important things we can do is have fun in life because life is what we make out of it. So,
yep,
like you said, if you want a friend to last forever, continue to invest in each other's life.
exactly. They share with me what they're doing. I see what they're doing, and I encourage them. I like to tell people to always add more weight to the bar, and it's that struggle that people like to watch.
Right.
Like I have there's another friend of mine that like I see lifting all the time. And actually it's not he, it's a she. She did a powerlifting competition. Now she's doing like a strong man slash strong woman.
Wow.
And seeing her push herself to do something different, you know, hitting a new PR, I love it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great.
Those are the best friends to have around is when you see people actually just like break that PR, especially something that people go through, especially with you being a powerlifter. I'm sure you can relate to this, is when people hit plateaus.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So I know you
yeah.
always say keep adding more weight, but that'd be 2.5 pounds. I don't know how much that would be in kilos. I know just off of my head, I know it's
Yeah,
like
uh,
a 2.2 difference. So
yeah. I'd have to pull up my calculator to give you a number.
hey,
But
if
yeah,
you're
like
that
even
person watching this, maybe you can figure it out. If you know like this, if you look at a
yeah,
calculator, well,
yeah,
still share it.
yeah, for sure. Because even like this week, like I have a goal set out for my next competition that's coming up on June 15th.
Hmm.
Um, I already broke my record here,
Oh, nice.
and it was good, but it was hard. It was hard. So, um, yeah, it's gonna be fun.
So, do you have like a top weight that you want to like, achieve and like hit?
Yes. So, my quit bench pressing journey, I already hit. I wanted to hit 195 kilos.
Okay.
Actually, I got a story for you. So let's just go back. So my first equipped powerlifting competition, I wanted to hit 200 kilos.
Okay.
All right. Um, so what happened was I hit my opener, right? So 185 kilos. I'm just going to give what numbers here as well. Um, and I missed my second lift, which was 195 kilos. So I wanted to
Oh,
go from 185, 195, and then 200. But I missed my 195. All right. Um, before bombing out at my national competition, and what I mean by that was I started doing bench only and three lift.
mhm.
So my bench only lift, I bombed out. I didn't get a single lift. Yeah, it was
Ooh.
yeah, it sucked. Um, Never happened before. On my record, it says BQ. So, um, which was not okay, but um, when you fail, you learn.
Right.
All right. So they had like a little shipping out place, so like a powerlifting store. I
Mhm.
bought myself I needed to get some elbow sleeves for my bench shirt, and also picked up some knee sleeves.
Oh, okay.
All right. So whenever I go to these competitions, I take my wifey, right? And she wanted to go to Saskatoon, right? So we drove down to Saskatoon, and I went to the gym because antique shopping is not for me. Okay. So I went to a gym there, and I put some weight on the bar, and I bench pressed what I missed on the day before.
Hmm.
So the problem wasn't with me. I'm not saying it was with the refs. The problem was with I just had a shitty day.
Okay.
Okay. So if I would have just, took my ego out of lifting that day and just, sat down at 175 kilos, not jump the commands,
Mm.
not heave the weight off my chest, I would have been successful.
Okay.
Okay. So fast forward to my equip bar powerlifting competition um, at 195. Instead of jumping to 200 like I wanted to, I sat down, focused my lift, and hit 195 kilos for my third
Nice.
lift. Right. So I just number that, I guess. So, taking my ego out of lifting for that last lift, it didn't really save me, but I was, if I would have hit 200 or wanted to try for 200 and would have failed, you know, that would have sucked. Okay. So just, you know, that was something that I learned from my nationals. Right?
So with the ego,
So
what were you kind of telling yourself? Were you saying like this is gonna be easy? I got this in the bags. Like, what did that
pretty much.
look like?
Yeah, nationals, yeah. So what happened at nationals was that the first lift that I did was 165 kilos.
Okay.
And this is like, a weight I would have always hit in the gym. But I unracked the weight. The the head ref gives you like the start command,
Hmm.
and then you bring the weight down to your chest. And then when he says press, you're supposed to lift. All right.
Okay.
So, if we spell the word press out, PRESS,
Right.
I started to lift at the first S. So
Oh.
so I jumped the command. Okay. So for me, this is where my ego jumped in. He said, "Hey, just go to 175. You'll be okay." And I listened. Okay. So going to 175, put it on, unracked, brought it down to my chest, and I heaved the weight off my chest. So like once the weight comes down and hits your chest, you're supposed to just, lift the weight,
Hmm.
right? So what happened was apparently the weight went down, then I went back up. So I got called for that.
Okay. So you didn't wait for it to like kind of set then and then press up,
It
or
Oh, I got the command to lift, but like the weight, either which way, like I failed the lift.
right.
So like um and then the fourth one, that one's just a mess. All right. So and if I would have stayed at 175, would have been a lot better.
Hmm.
Um so when I did the three lift, I just made sure I gave the ref an extra second. So when he said press, there's like a quiet in the room, then I lifted the weight. 175 did the same thing. So it was just a bad day in the office for my bench only. So
So how do you take those lessons? Because I like what you said. When you fail, you learn. So how do you take those lessons and move forward where you wait for that second S?
um, just be patient, and be in the moment and not rush anything,
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
And no, it makes a lot of
Um,
sense. But explain for someone who is still kind of wavering that when they feel like they have to do things urgently, like there's that sense of urgency to get everything done now, and you don't have that time just to enjoy the moment, enjoy the day, enjoy
oh,
that lift.
there, yeah, no, no. There's always time. All right. Life is not a race. It's a marathon. So even like in competition, like you do have a minute to do the lift, but just you're there to do three lifts. you have a minute to do your lift. So, you prepare yourself, you unrack, you listen, like I'm sure when people were little and, their parents, tell them to turn off the TV and they didn't turn off the TV, you got to listen. So you listen to what the ref's telling you and you just execute. So like when you're prepping for a competition, those repetitions, those reps that you're doing is for that one day that you have to do it. You have to execute, listen to the ref, hit depth, and not heave because you know the rules. You just got to and just execute. So,
I know that's saying a lot. Where to slow down is I
oh yeah,
know a lot of people who just want to go rush through everything where they forget the step process of going from here to here to here. So it's like learning to even slow your mind down so that way you're not like rushed in the process and you're half listening.
yeah, you can like you do like when you're training, like those reps that you're doing, like you're doing it. Well, see, that's the one thing as well. So, gym lifts do not equal the same kind of lifts that you do in competition,
Mm.
right? Because you're not listening for the ref to do anything. You're just unracking and doing the rep, right? So there has to be a part of your training where you're actually listening for, those commands and doing like a competition for like pause reps,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you sort of simulate somebody calling out the commands for you, or you have your gym bro, tell you to start, press, rack, right?
That's gonna be
And
literally my
and
next question is did you
yeah,
just take time to and just start to be like, okay, listen, I don't want to fail at that again because getting DQ, getting disqualified sucks like hell.
oh yeah, oh believe me, like I have another friend. He was he's like my 105, like that's the weight class that I'm in. He's my brother on there. And actually, at nationals, he won that competition due to my bomb out. So it was all good. So um he oh, what was I going to say now? He um he sent me the video, and actually like once I not once I failed, 'cause you watch yourself when you fail, but
Right.
I had to watch back and see myself actually failing in those lifts. So
Did you
it
ever do that
happens.
when you were like doing your wrestling, like go back and review like all the clips, all the video?
Nope. Back then there was only uh, VC, like a video camera,
Yeah,
like the big one you'd actually put on your shoulder.
yeah.
So yeah, no, we didn't. We had one, but no, I never
Okay.
watched all the videos.
Well, that's even a little bit more courageous if you had to do it when you're older and see
Yeah,
how everything moves, especially if you're not used to. Because I know with a lot of people that were in sports, I mean, you're watching, and this might have been more the coaches, but you're watching every kind of movement, every stroke, every pass, every tackle, every, especially with rugby, all the
yep,
formations.
yep. Um, like I recently went to uh, since I'm a bartender as well. There was a promotion where Molson, is Molson,
Oh, there you go. Some advertising,
um,
free advertising.
yeah, and also the Edmonton Oilers.
There you go.
We got to be a pro for a day. So we got treated to, skating on the rink, being in the visitors change room.
Oh,
And there's so much analytics that the actual hockey teams actually do. You'd think it's just all, them skating on the rink and, shooting the puck and all that kind of stuff. But there's so much more that happens in the background.
mm-hmm.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, actually, I know a former trainer for the Red Wings.
Nice. So you know what it's all about?
Know a little bit. I mean, I grew up watching hockey. I do love
Yeah.
hockey, so
Yeah.
I gotta say, right now, I'm pretty amazed by how tall they're getting,
Oh, yeah.
especially with
That's
skates.
oh, yeah, that's true. Like I'm only 5'8", so it's yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, well, plus, I mean, hockey. Thankfully, hockey's like one of those things. As long as you know how to skate,
Oh no, there's
especially
so
if I
much
mean,
more.
plus it's tradition in Canada. I mean, everyone knows how to skate.
I played hockey when I was little, so
Mm-hmm.
like I understand, like I took like it's a power skating as well when I was learning how to skate.
Oh,
So I can skate, but to skate with a hockey stick, and shoot and not have other people bump into me. Oh, that's a whole different level.
Yeah, especially hand-eye coordination, movement,
Oh, yeah.
and how hard that puck is when it hits.
Well, I don't even though like, let me just say I would not jump in front of a puck if it was going towards the net. So those goalies, yeah, they're different animals altogether.
Yeah, they completely are, and especially with only having like a short stick and
Oh,
decent
well, but
pads.
yeah, the amount of padding that they have, it's crazy.
Yeah, I can't imagine like getting shots. People like you know slap sticking it and everything. I just oh
Oh,
man,
it's a fun sport though.
it is. And occasionally it's nice to see for like better words, a little bit of how much they can get into it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The fights, the fights are the best.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of the spirit of hockey. It's like see how tough you are, especially when you go into the minor leagues and go up.
Yep. Oh, there's the the competition level is different. Obviously, it's different, but still, because the one thing that like for myself, like for me, like one of my goals, like I'm sort of gonna bring this back to powerlifting,
Go
because
for it.
one of the goals that I had for last nationals was to get a 700 total.
Okay.
Okay,
Is
so
that like
the
the
total
best
for my
or what's it out of? Because you said 700.
the highest scores out of your squat, bench, and deadlift.
Okay.
I wanted a 700 total. Um, and what I got from my Westerns total, I had an idea that I needed, a 250 squat, 180 bench, and a 260 deadlift, I believe it was.
Okay.
But I missed it. But I think I still qualified for nationals. But I wanted, you know, to set that goal and work towards that goal and failing. Um, I just know that I have to work a little harder at my deadlift. Um, and then we'll be there.
Good. So, well, just continue to practice it and
Oh yeah.
build up that weight.
Well, yeah. Now that I'm healthy, um, my training's gonna start not ramping up, but it's gonna start ramping up for Westerns that's coming up in October.
Good. Well,
So,
I'm glad you're healthy because injuries, no matter how minor or major, they're never fun.
oh no. And like I said, they are part of the game.
Right.
You just gotta know how to treat them. And even though like it was my hamstring that was jacked up.
Oh,
I tore my hamstring before, but I never really worked through it. So this time, even though my physiotherapist, he told me he didn't tell me not to train, but I did train. Okay. Um, so I would just shorten the range of motion that I was actually working in,
okay.
if that makes sense. So there's certain
Yeah.
exercises and variations that you can change, right? Or you could
Right.
do. One of them was for me was the box squat.
Okay.
All right. I picked it up off this one guy that I know on Twitter again. Um, so where you don't actually go down to past 90 degrees,
Hmm.
it's like sitting in a chair and then standing up, but keeping the tension in your quads rather than actually sitting down and then standing up. All right. You can do that in two different ways too. I did box squats. So um, I can still bench because you don't use your legs overly that much when you're benching. Um, but to squat and not telling me not to squat, that hurt. And that would frustrate somebody. Telling somebody not to do something that they want to do. But if you do it, if you do a variation of it, making it harder to a certain degree, so you could actually continue to train and still do it. I chose that path.
No, that's a good path. That knowing that there's always an alternative something.
Yeah, yeah.
I
You
think
give
that's a
yourself a
good lesson because a lot of times people are told they can't do something, and then they kind of get this like dark cloud over them where it's like, well, why? What did I just do for the past 4 or 5 years? Let's say.
yeah. So you just I did that. And then for my deadlift, which you do use your hamstrings, to make it harder on myself, I used an axle bar.
Oh,
All right. So it's it'd be like the bar would be almost like the circumference of this water bottle,
Hmm.
right? The weights would actually fit on there, but gripping around the water bottle like this. Oh, damn, Superman. Um, gripping around the bottle, it starts to actually engages your forearms a lot more. So
Okay.
I could not put on, let's just throw like I couldn't put 500 pounds on the bar,
Right.
all right, because with the circumference of the bar, you could only hold so much, and to actually get some good reps in, you put a plate on. Yeah, I'm still deadlifting. It's not heavy, but I'm still able to hit my back exercises.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
did you have to have, you don't have to show this, but did you have to have like any surgery on it or just allow it to heal?
No, no, just physio. So there's like three degrees of injuries you can have, right? So there's like where you pull a hamstring or you pull a muscle,
Right.
right? In a few days, a few weeks, feels better, right?
Hmm.
Or you can tear the muscle, all right? So it actually, um, yeah, it actually tears, right?
Right.
And it hurts. So, it takes obviously some more weeks to actually, heal. Or you could tear it off the bone, right? And that's one would actually require surgery.
Okay. So it's more so when it's fully tear, that's when you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, don't get me wrong, spraining it hurt. So,
Oh yeah, those are never fun, and I'm glad you didn't have surgery. That's huge because that would have put you back further.
oh, I would have been mad, so mad.
Yeah, well,
So,
would have had to practice something to help calm out those
oh, oh,
that frustration, that disappointment, especially.
yeah. Like when I tore my hamstring the first time, I still bench pressed. I did a lot of bench pressing and cable pull downs and shoulder presses.
Okay.
So, for me, that's where all that time that I spent with my torn hamstring, I put into my bench press, and that put my bench press ahead of others.
Yeah, well, you have to have your focus divided into three different ways.
Oh yeah. So yeah, and yeah.
And you're one tough guy, I tell you what, to
Oh,
still have a tear and then still work on working out.
well,
Perform.
well, when you have a passion for something, like you'll go through fire, to achieve that passion or to work toward that passion.
Hmm.
So even like I wasn't even training for anything particular back then. Just, actually, I'm going to step back just a little bit. So, oh, do you train?
Do I drink?
Train. You
Oh,
go to the
train?
gym, do you lift?
Yeah, of course.
All right. So what made you start training?
I wanted to get healthier, get in shape, didn't like how clothes were fitting on me. Especially,
All right.
as you
So
mentioned earlier, getting a job and working.
yes. All right. So once you have a goal, right, and you start seeing results, from your training, you start, you feel more, you find a reason to actually go about doing your training, without being forced to. It becomes a habit,
Right.
right? So once you have a habit, um, have you ever smoked before?
No.
All right. So it's not that but when people smoke for, X amount of years, it's very, very hard for them to quit.
Yeah. I work
They
with a lot
they
of people
say they're
that
going
do
to quit.
smoke, so I do know the struggles of it, though.
Yes. So once your training becomes a habit and you do it every day or you do it like, 4 times a week or 5 times a week. And say, for example, Christmas comes up and that's when you're supposed to go training or do a particular exercise.
Right.
You sort of get mad because you say, damn, I'm missing the gym today. Damn Christmas. You know what I mean? Or like Easter. Maybe you do like a cold plunge on Easter Sunday morning, but you got to go to church. You know what I mean?
Right.
You become obsessed with it that it bothers you when you can't go to it or you can't do it.
So
Right. So
especially when
when
you
I'm
compete at your level, where you need almost like every single day to train or do something because you're competing.
yeah, so like even Christmas, like this like I don't really track my diet. Um But because I had to had to lift in February, so like Christmas time ish. I think Christmas was like on a Friday or midweek, but that was like
Yeah, I think it was
my
like a
shoulder day. Yeah, it was like a one weird day in the middle of the week. But yeah, there was my squat day, or my shoulder day. But I didn't get overly mad, but just can't go to the gym. So
well, that's how you can tell it's your love and your passion when you can't have it. And it's just like so far away, you know, it's a day, you got the way day, still like, because your routine gets disrupted.
yeah, The- so there's gonna be obviously there's gonna be days that your routine does get disrupted. Um, but it's okay. It happens. Those holidays, you can't become like a total die-hard, you know, athlete where, missing those days, inhibits your ability to have time with your friends and family.
Right.
Yes, like we only have so many times to go to the gym, but we only have so many days to spend with our families as well, right? So, spend time with your wifey, your kids, brothers, sisters, you know, grandchildren. I have a little granddaughter. You got to take those times and spend time with them.
Yeah. Well, that's why I know a lot of people who get up early in the morning. They'll get up at like 5 or 5 o'clock in the morning because the whole rest of the day is filled with work and then filled with family time. And then by the time it's bedtime, it's like 9, 10 o'clock, and you have to do it all over again. Not necessarily it's a chore. It's just more so of the likelihood of doing the evening is less compared to the morning.
Yeah, that was a good point. Um, for me, like since I'm a bartender, like I like to get my beauty sleep still. So getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, is it is a non-starter for me.
Right.
So what would happen is when my kids were younger, I'd wait for them to go to bed at 8 o'clock, make sure that they're not sleeping, but make sure that they don't come out of their beds,
Right.
and then go to the gym at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
So for me, that was my time to actually, get my training after work. And when I got my job at the university, the gyms open up between, from I think it opens from 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock. But lunch hours, we got an lunch hour to go and eat. Might as well go train.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. So for like the 13 years, go to the gym at lunch, get my 7 sets in, go back to work, and then I could spend time with the family at night and make sure that dinner's made and all that other kind of good stuff, and they go to bed, and that would be it.
Yeah, especially if you're bartending, so it's a little bit more of a different little challenge than we have to be out late.
Oh, yeah. That only happens on Friday and Saturdays. Back then, I was also doing Sundays, so
Okay.
Mondays sort of hurt too.
Oh yeah,
But
especially if you want to get your beauty sleep, you know, making sure you're all looking good,
hey,
fine,
you have
nice.
to.
Oh, especially with bartenders, I mean, you gotta have that good personality, you gotta have that like
Well,
to.
oh, for sure. I know. And believe me, like my parents didn't name me Shadow, but you got to have that persona that, like for me, like when I train like young bartenders, there's two kind of people inside you, right? There's the kind of person you are in front of your family,
Hmm.
mother and father. Like, you don't curse in front of your mom and dad. Or, if that example doesn't work, you don't curse in front of a judge, okay? Or a cop. Some people do, and they end up in jail. But, you're respectful, right?
Right.
But then on the flip side of that coin, when you go out with your friends, like in high school friends, your boys, and if you're a girl, you go hang out with your girls, you're a totally different person.
Correct.
Behind the bar, I need that kind of person that is, the way that they are in front of their friends, I need that person behind the bar.
Mm.
So,
So you can kind of cut
it's
loose a
interesting.
little bit, take off those
Oh yeah,
reins.
yeah, just have a good time and just, be friendly
Yeah, I was
to
gonna say if
others.
your parents didn't name
Or
you Shadow, that's one cool heck of a name.
yeah, I picked that name up. A friend of mine by the name of Dave R, because I have a few friends by the name of Dave. Um, he because back in the day, people were allowed to smoke in bars,
Okay.
right?
Right.
And what I did was I used to be a busser, So what I was doing, I'd be walking around picking up the glasses, bringing it to the back so the dishes could get so the glasses could get washed, and empty out the cigarette butts out of the ashtrays. So when people would pick up the cigarette to put just light it up, I'd be right there and I would light it up for them.
Hmm.
So out of the shadows, you know, I let people
That's a
cigarette.
cool story. That's a lot cooler story than when I was thinking since you like video games, I was thinking like Shadow from like Sonic.
No, no,
Just a
no.
tough guy,
Lighting
and
people cigarettes.
from the
Yep.
shadows,
And
you help them.
yes,
Always
the
there,
shadows there.
always watching.
Yep. And then that continued to happen when I became a bartender. So
Nice.
yeah, it's fun. I have a
Well,
picture of me being set on fire too, but that's a whole
yeah.
different story.
Picture of you being set on fire.
Yeah.
Whoa, we gotta come
Uh,
back
uh,
and tell that story.
oh, well.
Awesome. So, in about a minute or two, what would you like to talk to a young Shadow, if you will? So, you got the viewer on the other side, just kind of going through life, trying to find their way. What would you tell the young Shadow?
Oh, a young shadow. Wow. Oh, all right. Oh, a young shadow. What would I tell him? Consistency is the key. Find the amount of days that you could actually train
Mm-hmm.
and stick to those days. Um, and set a goal. If you want to get muscularly bigger, or if you want to get stronger. For me, those two sort of go hand in hand. And then there's also fitness. All right. And set those goals and start to work towards them. All right. Um, train intensely. You know, yes, you can do 15 reps with 50 pounds, but can you do the same thing with 60 pounds? Adding 10 pounds.
Mm.
And yes, maybe for the first two sets you get 15 reps, but on the third set, you get 13. You know, don't don't necessarily don't go back to 50 just to feel good that you're able to get those 15 reps. Stay there at that 60 pounds and grind. Like this is a marathon. Getting stronger, getting fitter. It doesn't happen overnight. Take your time, focus at focus at your task at hand, and keep grinding at it. Keep grinding.
Well, you heard it from Shadow. Consistency, grinding it out, and don't rush the process. Take your time. Figure out what works for you. Take your
Yeah.
time. Pay attention to how your body responds to food, how it responds to weights, lifts, and what kind of body type do you want to get after. Because honestly,
Ooh,
remember,
yes.
you may want to look like Shadow, but you're not going to be Shadow. You can emulate and try to be him, but let's be honest, there's only one Shadow in the X sphere. And just if you're on the other side, take some time and go support Shadow. All his socials will be in the description below. Go check him out. Go follow him. Go help yourself be encouraged by his lifts, his competition, and his positive demeanor. And then don't forget to like, subscribe to the Men's Lifeline Academy, where we help men become the best version of themselves, helping them to achieve success and going at their pace that they want to go after. So be a scholar of life, always have this love for life and learning about life, learning about yourself, your family, and communities, and go out there and be the difference. And thank you for watching. Hope everyone has a blessed day. Shadow, thank you for coming.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.